Hey everybody, welcome to the videos. One of my favorite studs for week 10 of the NFL season over on Draftkings. And yeah, I know it's pretty easy to say these guys are good plays. They are expensive for a reason. They tend to play well all season long. But we still have to pick our favorite ones each and every single week. And that's all I'm doing in this video. And I was playing around with lineup builds earlier on in the day. And with Mike Davis being $4,000, that's going to really open up lineups this week. So you can definitely spend up on 2-3 studs this week if you choose to do so. But anyway, if you find this video helpful in any way possible, please leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. I really do appreciate it. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. Alright, and as always, we'll start with the quarterback position, and up top, we have Kyler Murray, $8,000. He is the most expensive quarterback this week, and I'll be honest, there's a lot of good spend-up QBs this week. We got Herbert, Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and Kyler Murray. Now, I made the cutoff line above Deshaun Watson, so pretty much 7K and above this week for the stud quarterbacks. So if you don't see Deshaun Watson on here, he's going to probably make the mid-range video just because I didn't want to lump him in with the studs because we have, 4 guys above 7K this week at the QB spot. So, I mean, all are fantastic plays. And just because I don't have one listed, because, I mean, if you don't see Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson here, it's not because I don't think they're good plays. I do think they're good plays. I just don't want to list every single spend-up quarterback. But my favorite one right now is Kyler Murray, $8,000. Super expensive, but he's pretty much the 2019 version of Lamar Jackson. He is killing it on the ground. He just has such a super safe floor. He really hasn't scored less than 25 fantasy points in a game this season. He's actually had back-to-back 41 fantasy point outings, and he is just crushing it. And his floor is so high due to his rushing ability. I mean, he's coming off a 100-yard rushing game. He's averaging about double-digit rushing attempts per game, 70 rushing yards per game, and a rushing touchdown per game as well. Kyler Murray's just been absolutely fantastic, and I love this game from a fantasy perspective versus Buffalo. 56.5 point over-under, which is the highest on the slate. They have a team total of nearly 30, and it's only a 2-point spread, so it should be pretty back and forth for the most part. And I definitely have a ton of interest in Kyler Murray. He also has one of the best wide receivers in football, if not the best, in DeAndre Hopkins to get the ball to, and a good secondary option in Christian Kirk as well. And he's been playing pretty darn good the past few weeks. And the Cardinals are also a team that plays at a pretty fast pace. So Kyler Murray, he pretty much checks every single box for me. The floor is super high. The ceiling is very high. And it's a good matchup versus Buffalo. They've definitely been getting off some points this season. They're ranked 21st versus quarterbacks, allowing 22 DraftKings points per game. So Kyler Murray, fantastic play. He is super expensive, but when you roster him, it doesn't feel as bad because you're kind of getting a running back quarterback hybrid when you do roster him. So it doesn't feel too bad spending that much dough on a QB. So definitely love Kyler Murray this weekend. And then the next quarterback I want to talk about is in the same game, just on the opposite side. We have Josh Allen at $7,500, and this is mainly just wanting exposure to this game. And I'd expect the Bills to be in a pass-heavy approach here versus the Cardinals because they are 2-point dogs. Not saying they're huge underdogs here, but this should be pretty back and forth for the most part. And Josh Allen, he offers us some rushing upside as well. Now, not quite like Kyler Murray, but he's definitely capable of getting rushing touchdowns. He did that last week. And on the season, he's actually averaging over half a rushing touchdown per game. Now, only about 30 rushing yards, but still overall he's a dual threat. And Josh Allen's been having a very good season so far, but it has been a bit like it's been up here, then it's kind of skidded down, then it's been back up, especially last week where he had over 400 passing yards versus Seattle. Now keep in mind that was one of the softest matchups you can ask for, and Josh Allen's pretty matchup sensitive. Like early on the season, he had 3 straight games of over 35, or not over 35 fantasy points, over 30 fantasy points at 33, 37, 36. Good game versus the Rams, which obviously that's not the worst defense in the world, so that was a pretty impressive game. But after that, skidded down just a little bit, 25. That's still good, but 18, 16, 20, 13, but got right back on track last week where he just absolutely crushed Seattle, had a fantastic game. And I could see a similar situation here. Now, the Cardinals' defense isn't absolutely atrocious. They're kind of just mid-range. They're 11th DVA versus the pass, and allowing about 20.2 DraftKings points here to quarterbacks, which is 14th in the league, and about 265 passing yards and about 2 passing touchdowns per game. So I wouldn't say it's like a super elite matchup, but I love this game environment, and I can definitely see this being a shootout. He's averaging about 290 passing yards per game, throwing the ball about 35 times per game, and like I mentioned, you get the rushing floor as well. So Josh Allen, if you can't spend top dollar $8,000 for Kyler Murray, I don't mind dropping $500 for Josh Allen at $7,500, who has similar upside to Kyler Murray. Now, I don't think his floor is as high just because he's not going to probably get 100 rushing yards and run the ball double-digit times, but he's definitely a very safe option with plenty of upside versus the Arizona Cardinals and what should be a nice shootout in the desert. And now we'll move on to the running back position, and right now we have an underpriced Aaron Jones at $7,100. I think he should be closer to $8K here in this fantastic matchup versus Jacksonville. I know last week on Thursday night, it was kind of iffy in how he was going to be used, but he was pretty much just good to go in that game, which is a good indicator of how he's going to be used in this upcoming game versus the Jaguars. I assume he's going to be full go here, and I absolutely love him here in this spot. In this spot. Probably going to end up being one of my core plays. They have a 33-point implied team total, and they're also 14-point favorites versus Jacksonville. This is one of the worst defenses in the league. So Aaron Jones, there's game flow wise being 14-point favorites, that sets up very well for a home running back. And Aaron Jones is obviously fantastic. He's also game script proof too, because he's going to be involved in the passing game as well. He's got around a 17% target share in the season, and this is just a super elite matchup versus the Jags. They're allowing 28.7 DraftKings points into running backs, which is 27th in the league, and they're also 21st DVA versus the run too, and they're also actually giving up 6.5 catches per game to running backs. So Aaron Jones, I think he's in a fantastic spot. I think he should be closer to $8,000, and you can get a really nice discount with him at $7,100. So he's probably going to end up being very popular on this slate, but he's definitely my favorite RB1 as of right now. And then the next running back, I know it's more of a mid-range guy, but besides Aaron Jones, I don't really like any of the other running backs that are above 7K this week, and there's actually only two more. That's Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey's not going to be playing more than likely, and Alvin Kamara, I mean, he's obviously fine each and every single week. I just don't see the need to have to pay up for Alvin Kamara this week. So I'm going to kind of cheat here and go with a mid-range running back. But we have James Robinson at $6,600. Now, the only concern here is that they are 14-point dogs on the road, so they may have to abandon the run. But even then, James Robinson has been involved in the passing game this year. He's got over 11% target share and getting a handful of targets each and every single week. And he's just been really good this year. He's had a really safe floor. He's getting volume every single week, around 17 carries per game. And this is a fantastic matchup versus the Packers. It's just, I worry about them keeping the game close, but the way to win this game for the Jaguars, I'm not sure if they really care about winning, but if they do want to win, you got to keep the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hand as long as possible, or as much as possible, I should say. So what better way to do that is kill the clock and just run it down their throats with James Robinson, and this is a fantastic matchup. They're one of the worst run defenses in the league, 20th DVA versus the run, and they're allowing the second most points for the running backs at 35 points per game, about 1.5 rushing touchdowns per game and 100 rushing yards. So James Robinson, I like the price point. Game flow, it could be a bit of an issue here if Vegas is correct with them being 14-point dogs on the road, which I could definitely see that happening. The Packers are a very good team, but their run defense is very leaky, and they've given up some big games to running backs. So James Robinson, I like the price point, but I do view him as more of a tournament option as of right now. But I mean, if Miles Sanders happens to be out, because I actually think if he's good to go, he should probably be the chalky RB2 in the slate, paired with Aaron Jones. But if Miles Sanders just happens to not play, and then Kenyon Drake's back for the Cardinals, and that would erase Chase Edmonds at 6,300, I could definitely see James Robinson's ownership getting a little bit more higher as the week goes on. But as of right now, I do think he's a very solid tournament option. And now we move on to the wide receiver position, and no other. We have DAVANTE Adams starting us off at $9,000. He is getting very expensive, but to be honest, I don't think this is too expensive. I think this is fairly priced, and honestly, you could make a case for him being $10,000. I know that's crazy, but he's just been so good this year. In the games he's been healthy and played the entire time, because when he played versus Detroit, where he only scored 6.6 points in week 2, he injured his, was it the hamstring earlier on in that game, and then he ended up sitting in the second half, and they were just killing the Lions, so you can't really count that game. But the only game he's had kind of like a below average performance, that was versus Tampa Bay in week 6, and his first game back, he only scored 12.1 points. But you got to keep in mind, the Packers overall just not play well in that game. But besides that, he has scored 44.6, 47.6, 30.3, and 36.3. He gets double-digit targets each and every single week, 17 in week 1, then 10, 16, 11, and 12. He's just such a super safe option. He's really the only guy that Aaron Rodgers can get the ball to that he really trusts. I know MVS is there, but he can be a bit streaky. Robert Tonyan's a fine tight end, but he's not anyone to really talk about too much if he didn't have Aaron Rodgers throwing the football. And Rodgers is playing at an absolutely elite level this season, so I'm definitely in on DAVANTE Adams. When I was building lineups early on in the week, or I guess I should say yesterday, because today's only Wednesday, so we didn't have many days earlier on in the week, but it's not that hard to fit him in. Like, I was able to fit in Aaron Jones, like a Miles Sanders, and a DAVANTE Adams with a guy like Deshaun Watson in my lineup, and it wasn't even that stars and scrubsy, because we can throw in Mike Davis, and then you can just throw in a cheap wide receiver, and then obviously the defense and tight end position you don't really spend up too much for either. So it's not that hard to fit DAVANTE Adams this week, so I actually don't think he's going to be too low owned, and this is a fantastic spot versus Jacksonville. They are dead last, 32nd DVA versus the pass. They have a team total of about 33 this week. He's got over a 34% target share on the season, and he's just been so good. He's scoring nearly a fantasy point per route ran this year, and He's just been absolutely phenomenal. And the Jaguars are 21st versus wide receivers. But I don't really care about matchups anyway with Davante Adams. But when you can give him one of the best matchups you can ask for, yeah, we're going to be pretty excited about it. 3.26 yards per route ran, which kind of blows everybody else out of the water, just comparing his stats to everyone else. So yeah, Adams has been on a whole other level. He's one of the best wide receivers in football. He's got a really good quarterback to get him the ball. Now I know they are 14-point favorites, so maybe they get to a point where they don't have to keep throwing the ball. But we saw that last week versus San Francisco. He's still crushed. So even if he's not needed late in the fourth quarter and just in the fourth quarter in general, he can still get there. Like, the guy's just been absolutely insane. So Davante Adams, super expensive, but it's a smash spot here, and I definitely don't mind just finding a way to get him in my lineups this week, because it's really not that hard, especially if Christian McCaffrey happens to be out, because then we have a free $4,000 Mike Davis. Then moving on here, we have the Rams wide receiver group. I was going to try to pick one of these guys, but to be honest, I view them as pretty much similar plays for the most part. One's just $300 more expensive and has a slightly higher target share in the season, but both are excellent plays here. You can certainly play both in the same lineup if you happen to go with Jared Goff, and you could always run that back with the next guy I'm going to talk about, but both these guys are in fantastic spots. Now, if you're looking at their target numbers last week, Cooper Kupp had 20 targets, but you got to keep in mind, Jared Goff threw the ball over 60 times in that game. That's not something we can expect each and every single week. Now, if he throws the ball 60-plus times versus Seattle, I would be super happy. No complaints there. I just can't really see a scenario where that's going to happen again. But if it does, though, like I said, not complaining. But these two guys are very similar plays, but you get a super elite matchup versus Seattle, literally dead last versus wide receivers this season. But looking at their numbers specifically, Cooper Kupp's at 8.5 targets per game, and Robert Woods is at slightly below 6. And he also has a 20% target share compared to Cooper Kupp's 26.5% target share. So, yeah, Kupp's, I guess, the more volume option, but both guys are fine here, and that's just a slight price difference. You're just paying $300 more for more targets per game for Cooper Kupp, but love both of these guys quite a bit. And the matchup versus Seattle, like I said, it's absolutely amazing. They're 29th DVA versus the pass, and they're giving up an insane 63.2 DraftKings points per game to wide receivers, which is obviously dead last, and nearly 300 receiving yards per game just specifically to wide receivers. So both these guys, it would not surprise me if they had 25-plus points, both in the smash spots here. So definitely in on both of these guys, and they're obviously an excellent pairing with Jared Goff this week. And then on the flip side of this game, the guy that's burned me 2 weeks in a row, Tyler Lockett, $6,500. I'm sure you guys are probably tired of hearing his name come out of my mouth, but trust me, I am too. But he's getting to a price where it's going to be really hard to pass him up at $6,500. Is DK Metcalf better than him? Yes, obviously. But he's also around $1,000 more expensive. Now, I know it's worked out the past 2 weeks, but man, it's hard not to like Lockett here at $6,500. And I'm really liking a stacking idea of using Jared Goff, both those Rams wide receivers, and Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. Then you can run that back with Tyler Lockett as well. But all those guys are in the 6K range, so it's kind of more of a balanced lineup, and you can certainly make that work this week for sure. I'm not sure if you'd be able to fit in Adams with all those guys in the flex spot, but you can certainly make it work just getting those four players together. It's only a 2-point spread in this game. It's a 55.5 point over-under, so a lot of points should be scored in this one, and I definitely like Tyler Lockett as a run-back option. He's got one of the best quarterbacks in football throwing the football, and the volume's been fine. It's just he has really had a disappointing past 3 out of the 4 weeks, although he's had 2 really big blow-up games, and then early on in the season he had some solid games as well. But nearly 9 targets per game. Got to keep in mind he had around a 20-target game, which can certainly skew those numbers a little bit. Same with Cooper Kupp the past week, but even then, about 7 catches per game, 80 receiving yards per game. He's been scoring touchdowns as well, and he's got a 25% target share on the season, so I like it. And he's always going to see the softer coverage between him and DK Metcalf, because obviously DK Metcalf is a physical freak, and they're going to key in on him, so it's always going to give Tyler Lockett some softer coverage. But man, I've said that the past 2 weeks with Jason Verrett and Tre'Davious White, it just has not mattered. DK Metcalf has went off, so be aware of that. But the price point is getting to a point where it's going to be pretty hard to pass up, and I'm probably going to end up eating it again in a lot of lineups, and it might hurt me again, and this is not a good matchup versus the Rams overall. They're allowing the second fewest points per game to wide receivers, which is 27.6 fantasy points per game. They're 10th EVA versus the pass, but I mean, it's Russell Wilson. That defense is so bad, it just gets them kind of in shootouts for the most part, where Wilson's just throwing the ball a lot, and it doesn't really matter what the matchup is, so it's a good price. It's just I'm hoping I'm not getting suckered in again, because I don't want to get burned 3 times in a row. And then last but not least, we have the tight end position. I only have one guy here for you, and it's Darren Waller at $5,900. And this game might be a sneaky shootout here. They're going up against the Denver Broncos, and both these defenses are not that good. And there's a 52-point over-under in this game right now, and the Raiders actually have a team total around 28 this week, actually pretty close to 29 when it opened. But, I mean, I like the spot here. Darren Waller is obviously the number one pass-catching option for Derek Carr, and the volume's going to be there each and every single week. He scored. He's got over a 28% target share in the season, over 8 targets per game, about 6.5 catches per game. He's not doing a ton of damage in the yards department, less than 50 receiving yards per game, but the volume's going to be there, and so it's just a super safe option each and every single week. Now, the matchup individually versus Denver as a tight end, it's more so mid-pack. They're only allowing 12 DraftKings points per game, which is 13th in the league, but Darren Waller, he's a super talented tight end, and he's going to get volume each and every single week. Now, personally, I see myself going with one of these 4K or upper 3K tight ends this week because we're kind of littered with good options down there. And Evan Ingram, we have Dallas Goedert, and then even Austin Hooper. I believe he's 3,900. So I'm probably going to see myself going there this week. But if you want to spend top dollar at tight end, Darren Waller at $5,900, definitely a very safe option each and every single week. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. So I hope it was helpful. If it was, make sure you leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out. I really do appreciate it. Only about 50% of the people watching these videos have subscribe to the channel. So if you come back each and every single week and you haven't subscribed yet, really do appreciate that if you take the time out of your day to hit that button. Also turn on the bell so you don't miss out whenever I post new videos. Now I think that's going to be pretty much it. If you don't follow me over on social media, the handle's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. You can support the channel over on Patreon, the link down below. You get access to my spreadsheets, my Discord chat, all that fun stuff as well. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So I'll see you guys in the next one, which will be my showdown video for the Titans and Colts game.